What we're going to talk about is your right to protest. Some of you may not know this. You don't have to wait. I know you don't need, you know, it's okay to wait. You don't have to wait. You can say, you know, I know you're going to mess with me. You can file a notice of protest right now. Wouldn't that be kind of funny? So I kind of already know, you already messed with me last year. I'm going to mess with you this year. But you have the right to protest under the law. You have the right to the government's evidence. Has everybody asked for the government's evidence before they went into the hearing? Yeah, you did. But did everybody? I don't see a show of hands. No. Well, that's because the state comptroller's form that's used very commonly doesn't tell you that if you just write it in the little blank box, I want the evidence. They have to give it to you with 2 weeks advance notice to your hearing. So, yes, ma'am.
Is that the same as the iFile number?
No. No, in the iFile, if you're filing online, which I'm not big on just, you're going to understand why in a little bit. Well, I don't want you to just exchange facts. Because too many personalities are lost on just facts. But we're going to talk about that. But in the application, and if you have to do it, you know, by email, please make a note. You want the evidence before you show up. Yes, sir?
I think what she's referring to, if you make an iFile profile, you can actually go in and they give you a PDF of all the properties, all the values.
That's what we're asking for. So yes, if that's what you're referring to. I thought you meant in some counties, the filing by, you know, online, and some people who think they're shy or they don't want, they want to propose. So that was my distinction. Thank you for the clarification. We're going to talk about the best evidence presentation strategy. We're going to talk about your right to appeal through arbitration and your need to protest because it benefits your neighbor. Because for some of you, you may not be as, let's say, at risk to taxes because you have exemptions, but your numbers are being used to crowd in your neighbor. We'll talk about that. And last but not least, I'm going to be running for comptroller on Independence Day. I'll be announcing that I'm an independent running for comptroller. I'm going to need a petition of the non-primary voters. This is not the night to sign it, so you don't have to even feel pressured about that. But please get out and vote, whether it's in the general election or whether you feel really inclined towards picking a party. Tax avoidance is not tax evasion. I need to also encourage you to realize nothing we're talking about is unethical or illegal. Okay, so hopefully you can breathe a little sigh of relief. You're going to get the slides. You're not getting a sales pitch. I have no employees. I don't pay rent for the building that I manage for my California investor. And I have a beautiful view like here that you didn't see of a golf course in my backyard. So I'm blessed that I can be here to support the efforts of the school. So this is the calendar, generally speaking, and we do have the wrong slide. Hold on just a second. I've been playing with this computer. I'm going to need some help here.
You're going to explain more about tax avoidance versus tax evasion. Yeah, that's the key. 2 words that you have to understand the definition. Tax avoidance is what you do. It's normal. It's legal. Tax evasion is illegal.
Hey, sorry about that. I updated this a little bit. We're good. So that was what I was referring to as the Texas Taxpayer Bill of Rights. So you got legislative authority. This is our summary. Judge Learned Hand, this is a great quote. So be empowered. Do not be anxious. The schedule is this. Generally speaking, May 15th is the last day of protest. To file your notice of protest. And that is in response to the notice that comes, and generally speaking on the back of it is where you can fill out the information. We'll go through that. And then, but January 1st is the effective valuation date. So right now, start taking inventory of all the things that were wrong on January 1st. I like to always say, if your house burned down on New Year's Eve, what would they be taxing? Land and slab. Right? Because that's all that's left. So it doesn't matter that you could rebuild it and then sell it in June or July. May 15th is usually the last day, but again, it varies from county to county. COVID extended it 1 year. Who knows what will happen between now and April 1st when they send out the notices. But again, January 1st. So right now, if you're seeing items, whatever it is, then those are probably items of conditions of the property that if you were selling it, you'd be getting it right. If you've got a leaky roof, if you've got all the honeydews, and we're going to show you some pictures, some examples. So they send out these notices of value every April, and the notice of protest is usually on the back of that form. In Bexar County, what's really interesting is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times on the front, it says this is not a bill. Now what do you do if you get something that says 5 times it's not a bill, and it's from the government? Well, you probably put it in a drawer. And this is perhaps what's contributing. But in Bexar County, much like in Harris County, on the back, and I blew up the form, 3 pages. We're so generous, we tell people, don't forget to check the box to request our evidence. And then we actually, at the bottom, we'll put on a box. Before I get to, besides filling out the information, you want to protest based on 2 reasons. One is market value, and the other one is equity. Now what's the difference? Market value is what they're going to say they could sell your home for, and the other one is what they're taxing your neighbors at. Now, what did I say earlier? 80% of your neighbors don't protest. So the first thing I say is, I don't care what you tell me the equity value is. Just because they're not doing it doesn't mean that they agree. It just means they didn't come to this seminar. So let's talk market value. And what could I sell it for? How many of y'all right now would, of course we're in a strange market because of the car situation, but in normal car markets, how many of you would say, hey, I could take my car and trade it in right now without tuning it up, without cleaning it up? Most of us wouldn't, right? We get it ready. Our homes are the same way. I mean, your home is where your heart is, but your house is not market ready. And if you think it's market ready, ask your spouse. Ask a realtor. Fill out a seller's disclosure notice. And that will prompt you to think about all the things that you might fix before you go to market. And that's real important because you're not going to market. So you've got to think in reverse. As a real estate broker, I want to help you get your home up here. But as a property tax protest consultant, if you will, I want to tell the government it's down here. And I can do it without being a hypocrite. Because I'm talking about January 1st. In June. And in June, when I'm talking about it, the market may have changed. I may have gotten the house in better shape. I've actually helped somebody arbitrate a value down to $550, then turn around and put it on the market for $800. And I didn't lose any sleep because I was able to make the case that back then there were lots of things that hadn't been done. So in Bexar County, look at that. We give it to you in red. We're a very friendly county. But most counties, and I've been to most of them, don't have this, so we have to write it in. Evidence requested. Once you do that, now you're saying, let's even up the playing field, county. Give me the data. Sign it, send it. Thanks to COVID, we can do it remotely by Zoom in some cases. Ideally, for some of you that don't prefer to have to go to the trouble of traveling, it changed my life. It changed my life. COVID changed my life. I'll tell you how. The constable in Bexar County announced the same seminar the month before COVID, and 1,000 people signed up. We didn't even have a place. We had to have a room like this. We had 25 people 5 times in a week. We barely took a dent. And then COVID hit, and I got depressed because I really liked sharing the word. And the good news is that we started doing it by Zoom. And the government was responding by closing their doors and doing it only by telephone and by Zoom. And then I realized, whoa, wait a minute. If I don't have to go down to Bexar County's appraisal office to represent my neighbors, then I'm just as available to go to El Paso or to go to Harris County. Or just to tell you that you don't have to go down there to make it even easier. There's not that anxiety, there's not that weight, it's pretty efficient. So consider that, because the Harris County Appraisal District protest form is going to be lacking some of these things, and I'll attempt to insert that with the slideshow that, you know, if you give them your email address, I will forward it through them to you. So again, we said May 15th, you want to tell your family and friends that you can email the protest to HCAD. What I want to tell you a little bit about an experience I had in Atascosa was that out of 40,000 accounts, only 2 or 3, and I don't know, last year were arbitrated. That's when you don't get satisfaction from the county and you have the right to appeal to somebody that's not even from the county. Now, we've had one bad experience in this room, but I can tell you the majority of the time, especially if you have a witness, you know, those arbitrators that I'm certified as an arbitrator. I've attended a 3-day school. Those arbitrators are getting paid $400 for that hour or half an hour or whatever amount of time they want to allow you to both exchange evidence. And they're hearing the case for the first time. But they generally, we have a sick exception, but they generally don't have an axe to grind. You can actually specify, I don't want that arbitrator from Harris County. Because everybody in Harris County is all networked and they all think that everything in Houston's bigger and better and more expensive. So maybe I want somebody from, if it's from Beaumont or Dallas or San Antonio, just don't bring me somebody local that might be familiar with the people in Harris County. Because maybe that's a concern you have. That's a reasonable concern. If you go to arbitration, which is an appeal, you can check that block and say, I don't want the arbitrator from my county. But in Atascosa, they had 4 field appraisers, 1 business appraiser, they had 1 chief appraiser, 1 assistant appraiser. So essentially, 40,000 accounts, not counting their mineral accounts, divided by 8 appraisers meant that each appraiser had 5,000 accounts. 5,000 properties per person? Between January 1st and by April 1st, they could give a value? You see the possibility that they might not know what they are doing? That they're just making generalizations? And yet you know your house, you know your neighborhood, you know your house like no one knows it because you're in your house. They've never been in your house. Now, if it's, you know, if it's immaculate, then maybe you're not going to be able to show them what's in your house. But if you can find a crack here, you can find a leak there, you can say the flooring's dated, you can say, then that's where you have the mathematical advantage. They have this in the back of their mind. And because less than 20% of this protest, it's like they've gamed the system. They know 80% aren't protesting. If you go in there with the proper attitude and the best presentation, you should get some relief. They're going to put up a push, but we'll get past it. We're not going to talk about exemptions. I apologize, because we could be here all night long talking about exemptions. But you are entitled to certain exemptions, maybe based on your age, maybe based on your disabled vet. Thank you for your service. Any other veterans here? Yes, sir. Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. My father, being an immigrant, you know, he had the opportunity to volunteer for World War II. So it really means a lot to me when I get to meet a veteran to know that you do have some rights. But for the most part, you know, we still might want to protest that value. We might want to protest it for nothing else for whoever's our beneficiary. So you're assessing your property versus the mass appraisal system that the county's using. I mean, 5,000. If I was working for the county and I did 5,000 appraisals, what's the likelihood that I made a mistake? It's possible. And I've never even been inside your home. I probably never even walked down your neighborhood. I probably even not even flown a drone down your neighborhood. So we talked about requesting the evidence. The benefit of it is that you go in prepared, and you have 14 days if you request the evidence before they can schedule your hearing. We want to find in their evidence the description of the property. It may be mistaken. We want to find out whether their equity values are based on comparable tax values. Occasionally, telling me what my neighbor's property's taxed at works. But if it's not favorable, then you know the argument. Hey, I know 80%, Mike told me 80% of us don't, in my neighborhood don't protest. So don't waste my time telling me what the equity value is in front of this panel. Imagine this is the panel of 3 or 4, depending on the county, and he's the appraiser, and I'm the property owner. So he's making his case in front of these panelists. And this jury of your peers is not necessarily licensed in real estate, licensed in appraising. It's a jury. And they're hearing cases every 15 minutes. They're on a budget. They're being told, get in, get out, get in, get out. So you're going to make your case in a few minutes. I'm going to make my case in a few minutes. And I always try and make sure you go first so I can have the last say. So you're going to go first. They're going to ask you, would you like the county to go first or would you like to go first? You always let the county go first. Why? Because you want to have the last say. It's just there's something to that. If you've ever had an argument with your spouse, there's something to having the last word, right? So last but not least, this is where we're going to focus. Our house isn't for sale. The homes they're comparing to have been sold. Meant a real estate professional that we paid 6% to, or more or less, and a title company guided us through the process. Well, that should be worth more, if you will. Because otherwise, what's the point in getting a realtor involved if they can't guide you to the highest value? But, you know, in commercial, sometimes we've got other conversations to have. I don't know if anybody's here on behalf of a commercial property or you know anybody. Sometimes those appraisers don't even understand the idea that this net income approach is only meaningful if I'm getting net income from the property. If it's my restaurant and I'm renting it, or if I'm using it, the building to run my own restaurant or my own business, there's no income. I'm not paying myself a lease. So we can talk all day long about commercial. In fact, one of the board members, I don't know if he's here tonight, but you know, when we were talking about it, many of your friends that own businesses that pay triple net leases, meaning they pay a base rent plus taxes, plus insurance, plus common area maintenance, those people actually have the right to protest the value if the landlord doesn't. Unless the landlord has excluded them that right from their lease. That's not very well known. So on behalf of the school, tell as many people as you can that the school, we're officially their first class. How do you like that? You know, we're going back to the first grade, but there's graduate level people in business, so to speak, and they don't know that they have the right to protest because they think they don't own the property. Well, if you pay the taxes under the Texas Property Tax Code, you have the right to protest the value. So that panel of 3 right there. Now they all look the same. You know, they're all fair skinned. They're younger than I am. But the bottom line is, according to the psychologists, in the English-speaking population, we're evenly divided in our social styles. We're either a high feeler or a low feeler, or a high thinker or a low thinker. What do I mean by that? I mean that sometimes if I'm on and I'm not perspiring and a little bit stressed because the air's not moving, I want to get you out of here, I would be talking really fast, like maybe a salesman. But maybe I might be congenial, but I'm not really trying to talk fast to get to a deal. I'm just being like a receptionist, like, good to see you, can I get you something to drink, have a seat? Very personable, not a lot of thought, but it's very engaging compared to a surgeon. Just facts, right? Remember that show, Just Facts, man? I'm going to, you know, are you ready for the surgery? Because I'm going to take your heart out and I'm going to put somebody else's heart in. But don't worry about it, I've done this lots of times, right? Life and death. Versus an accountant, where just the facts, but I'm looking at your shoes because I don't have any communication skills, any social style, and I'm not going to kill you. Right? So the point in this is not that any one of your social styles is wrong. The point is your social style, sir, may be very conversationally engaging, but 2 of those 3 people may be a little shy. 3 out of 4 generally don't have your social style. So how do we overcome that when you're going to have one chance? You're not going to make your presentation 3 different ways. Right? You're going to make it one way for 3 people in 5 minutes. So if you remember nothing else from this seminar, Nothing else. If you want to improve your messaging to your spouse, to your boss, to your neighbor, whoever you're talking to, look at me. Inform with facts. I'll point to my head. Entertain with the images. And inspire for empathy to the heart. Now we've reached all of those social styles. So I've got to slow down if I'm talking to a couple of blues. I don't want to come across too fast, too quick, because if these two are blues, then they're like, he's talking a little fast and it sounds kind of slick. So I'm going to slow it down, be very deliberate. But the flip side is I'm not going to be boring, because I might have somebody that likes to see pictures. So what are we going to do? We're going to inform with facts, entertain with images, till we inspire empathy from the board, sympathy sometimes. But we're going to flex our style. So whatever your comfort zone is, I appreciate that. And hopefully you found an opposite that attracted to you and you got a companion for life. But if you didn't, and you don't have to practice at home, you may be thinking about this because it's going to be incorporated into the presentation. So, what are the steps? Mike, we filed the notice of protest before May 15th, and they invited us to an informal hearing. That's what they like to call it. I don't call it an informal hearing. I call it an informal conversation. It's non-binding. It's almost like a warm-up. It's like, I'm going to go practice. Hi, thank you. Because maybe Harris County this particular year, Travis County 1 year had no informal hearing. You want to protest? You go in front of the panel. Ooh, got nervous, right? Formal. But in many of the counties, to try and filter down all these protests, they went and they offered you an informal, they call it hearing, but I call it a conversation. Hi, how are you? And unless you just knock it out of the park, unless they just knock it out of the park, it's just practice, right? You get to see them tell you about the evidence. It may not even be the same person that you see at the formal, because they may be letting the rookie, the 1 or 2 year experienced staffer, practice on them. So if you go through that, or if you skip it, you go to the formal hearing, and you're making a formal presentation. That's when you get the panel. We call it the appraisal review board. Then, if you're not satisfied, but you let them rule, very important, I'll go through that in a second, then you have the right to appeal. And you can appeal through arbitration in lieu of litigation. You do not need a lawyer to request an arbitration. And you need to pony up some money, and I'll explain that to you in a second.
Is the arbitration at the district level, or you're saying that's previous to the?
No, that's above the district. That's it. They work for the county.
District court.
No, you don't. This is not district court. It is an appeals process that's supervised by the comptroller's office, where they assign somebody like me that went to a 3-day course. Not me, because I didn't put my name on the registry. But there's approximately 200 arbitrators for just property tax cases. These are not necessarily judges. They're generally lawyers, accountants, real estate brokers who took a 3-day course in knowing how to take the evidence from the county, the evidence from you, make sure we exchanged it, then you had the chance to rebut it, and then set a date, and on that date, they're hearing the case for the first time. It can be by Zoom, it could be by telephone, you could be in Austin, and the arbitrator could be in Dallas, and it's still the county's appraiser, not the board anymore. We're past them, right? The jury ruled at the formal hearing, and we said, they just don't get it. So we appealed by filing for arbitration. I lose you, or am we doing all right? Seriously,
I'm absorbing everything, but
Okay.
we've sued in court.
You have the right to sue. You have the right to sue.
Have we done that? Three times, I think, or 4 years.
You have the right to sue, and I've also handled cases where I said, if you
So
don't...
this is previous to that?
No, it's an alternative to that.
Okay.
So you with your real estate guy or with me, we can file for arbitration and say, attorneys this year, I'm not going to give you some money, go file in court. Okay? So it's an alternative. And most people at the residential level, they're trying to save an extra $500, $1,000, $1,500. They can't afford to pony up $2,500 to a lawyer. But I've also represented multifamily apartments where we lowered the value a million, say 28,000, and it was through arbitration. Because we made our case. Because you and I sat in front of an arbitrator and we did a really good bang-up job as a twosome, and we didn't go to court. So we'll talk more about it, but I'd be glad to show you those cases. So we're going to make our case, on three basic points. One of them is the county appraisal district is using market data mass appraisal. We talked about that. You're being able to argue, you don't know the condition of my property, right? We're with that so far? They haven't been to your home. They haven't been inside. They don't know the significance of the location. Are you in the floodplain? You're near bayou that hasn't been dug out a little deeper? You're trying to be kind of local? Are you if you're under a flight path out in Montgomery County? Are you further up Antoine? How about that? Some people are a little anxious about the neighborhood because apparently a little further up the street there's a bar here. They seem to have a proliferation of gunfire. Apparently nobody gets shot. But pull a rap sheet on your neighborhood. See if there's a sexual predator in the neighborhood or something. Location is what we say as realtors. Yes, if you have a golf course view, maybe that's an argument for it going up. But generally speaking, you want to look for characteristics that say, I back up to Antoine. There's a lot of traffic. Or I front on Antoine. Even if it's the better section. And then market data. Every one of you probably bought a home through a realtor. Well, I'm here to tell you that I'm trying to get the same course that you're learning today approved because the real estate community, unlike the accounting community, doesn't seem to understand, and I hope I'm not offending any realtor in here, and if I am, then follow my lead and I'll help you. You should be supporting your clients when they're not buying homes. Those 4 out of 5 years on average. If you're a professional, you want to be there to lower their burden so that you can enjoy the benefit when they want to sell. At least that's my feeling. So don't hesitate to call that realtor and say, hey, I know you sold me this home. Well, is there anything wrong? Do you want to sell? No, I'm fine. Could you run some comps for me? Could you look at the comps with me? And if they don't want to do it, then maybe they go to number 2 on the list when you do go to sell. I hope that's just my bias, and I am a licensed real estate broker. So here's a sample evidence package. This is Mr. Cifuentes, who is sitting in this audience, so to speak, a year and a half ago. He had heard everything I said. I would drop the mic at this point and say, bless you, good luck. And he put a package together. And so we're going to look at it. And he had a summary sheet. He said, Mike, is this what you're talking about? There's my name, there's my property ID number, and you can't see it, but it says, I think it's going to need $2,900 of painting, $45,000 because the windows are old, flooring. I don't even know what it would cost because of certain circumstances about where I live on the greenbelt, the odd-shaped lot. This is intentional. I don't know if you've ever read the book by Trey Gowdy, It Doesn't Hurt to Ask. This is one of those times when it doesn't hurt to ask. Why? Because I don't want to come across like I'm the expert. I don't want to put a finite number on all the reasons why my property is overvalued. I want to tell them, I got an estimate for painting, I got an estimate for windows, I got an estimate for flooring, but you know what? I don't even know how much we should knock off for, as I said, backing up to Antoine, or being in a crime zone or something like that. What are you doing when you do that? You're respecting the jury. You're asking them subtly. Because that man may have the same issue. And he may say, you know what? I got the same problem. He won't say it out loud. And so you may have bonded with him because you asked the question and you didn't put any limits on God's humor by putting a bottom line. So our bottom line is $64,000 plus. We don't know about these other issues. And then what did I tell you about those social stocks? Now, an accountant may go to town on it, an engineer, oh, look a couple of numbers, let me get to practicing math like I was when I was in the 8th grade. But that's only half the audience. The other half is like, oh, I'm getting tired, I've been here all day, it's 3 o'clock, I can't wait to get finished with this one. How many more? We've got 3 more of these. And so we show them a picture. Wow, yeah, look. Boy, rest your analytical mind, take a look at the picture. Oh, but the painting, I got an estimate. Oh, the windows. See, some of them are broken. Oh, they've been there for whatever. There's an estimate. You notice what I'm doing? Facts, images, facts, images. Doesn't matter who my audience is. They're going to like one or the other. Floors, flooring bid. Now let's get to the questionable stuff. This gentleman backs up in his cul-de-sac to a vacant lot. And the neighborhood's not keeping up that vacant lot. And in fact, what you can't see, because maybe you're at a distance, is the vacant lot separates him from Highway 281, which is the equivalent of IH-10. And I'm not a thief, but if I was going to break into a home, this is the one I'm breaking into. And I'm breaking into it from the fence. I'm not coming up the front like the police do based on the address. I've already scoped it out, because this is the nearest way out. If I'm going to break in here, I'm not coming in the front. I'm going to come over down, I'm going to check out the golf course. This used to be a golf course. I can get out of here down the fairway. And I'll be on to Antoine. When the call comes in from the neighbor, they're coming in the front, right? The police are coming in this way. I'm already down. So we were making a big deal about the vacant lot. And then we showed a few more pictures. Look, fence needs repair. There are always these, well, we don't take that into consideration. Well, the buyer certainly would. So, oh, but look, he's got an odd-shaped lot. Now, what do we say as buyers and owners? We say, well, look, I got that extra lot. Look, isn't that great? I can put my barbecue pit here. I can build a pool here. That's what you say when we're selling. When you're appraising for government purposes, you're saying it's irregular. I mean, I don't build a home in that shape. I build it generally as a rectangle, 90 degrees. And on this one, look at the slope. Now, everybody went through Snowvid. He was probably the last person out of the neighborhood. That's like a ski slope. And look, Mom, no rails. Doing a little humor there. You know, this isn't me. I'm not that funny. So we said, look at the other homes in the neighborhood. Those people didn't have trouble getting out of the neighborhood after 2 days. They didn't have to wait for the ice to melt. And I didn't include everything. I know some of you are saying, well, what about roofing? What about waterproofing? What about foundation? Hey, whatever you can throw at the kitchen sink and throw it. You know, heating and AC systems. The chief appraiser's personal favorite in Atascosa was plumbing, because she found, as she's working on her own house, that the plumbing had there was something wrong, and she got to replace all her plumbing. So, you know, these people are fighting it even as we are, as taxpayers. So all recommendations are welcome. I always learn something from the audience. So, but the difference isn't arbitrary between an appraiser that's licensed and overworked versus a jury of our peers. So I've got the government appraiser. He's maybe licensed, but he's overworked, right? 5,000 cases. We've got a jury of our peers that are having trouble just, you know, getting this nominal compensation to listen to people complain all day. And there is a difference between that versus going to an arbitration. There used to be about 1,600 arbitrators. Then the state decided we'd raise the standard. And I'm not saying, obviously, there are exceptions. But when they raised the standard, suddenly there wasn't 1,600 arbitrators anymore. There was like a couple hundred. Because they said, we want them to have some academic credentials. So I'm a little bit of a fan. The chief appraiser of Bear County was the one who told me, Mike, you're doing all these seminars, you ought to at least be an arbitrator. You're paid for all the advice you give. I said, I don't want to pick winners and losers. I want to be with winners. And when you do this, you generally win. This lady was, I keep referring to her, my sister here, she got so messed around by an arbitrator who wasn't receptive to the fact that they had to open a file that, you know, that even the appraisal district was sympathetic. But generally speaking, this appraisal review board is going to be the formal hearing, and if you don't let them rule, then you cannot appeal. So don't cut your deal. He may make me an offer, but I'm not going to cut the deal with him. I'm going to keep my peace. Anybody play golf? Any golfers? The best golfing advice, greatest golf psychologist ever said, do not become attached to the outcome before you finish the round. Okay? So just follow the process. Don't go in there thinking, if I get this, I'll be happy. If you do that, you're putting limits on what God might allow. Remember, with God, all things are possible. With appraisal districts, it may not be probable. But I'm a faith-based person, so I always bet with God. And I don't put limits by having a preconceived notion. And commit to the process of presenting and appealing. Please, be polite and patient. Don't get sucked in by going first. Right? Would you like to go first, or would you like the county to go first? Always let the county go first. It's just something that sets the tone. You get the last word in. You're going to present second. He's going to comment. You're going to finish your comments. Then they're going to rule. Do not attack the appraiser. It's not personal. He didn't set the rates. He might have set the value. He may not even set the value. Some algorithm might have set the value, and he's just trying to make it an argument in front of you, scrambling, looking at data for the first time. That actually happens. I've seen it. I go in there and there they are, B, that's all, folks. That's all I know, what I just saw. They're not sitting around for 4 hours getting ready for your one case. But do be prepared, present your facts. Do not accept the appraiser's offer. If he makes you an offer and the panel hasn't ruled, say, thank you very much. I'd like the panel to rule. They can ask you, would you like to accept it? Almost, you remember the Monty Hall, and you want what's behind door number 3, and whatever was behind door number 3 had the chance of being a donkey or $0, but I'm going to give you 200. The experience generally, that panel has already presumed he's an expert, and unless they're sympathetic to you, they're not going to go up. They're either going to give you what he offered, or they're going to go lower. So here's Mr. Cifuentes. Just like you, he started with $320,000. That was his initial value from the county. At the formal, which was on Zoom. And picture this. This is the camera. He's there with his wife. The appraiser listens to all those facts. And the appraiser says, in front of the panel, realizing he's got a pretty good case, the appraiser says, I'll offer you $300. And I'm like, you're going, no, don't do it. Because I really liked them. I thought they would be sympathetic. I didn't want to be look at me, they got a professional. So I'm sitting there. They're doing this all on their own. I'm on the other side of the camera. And I'm literally making these gestures. Don't do it. Don't, whatever. So they, okay, no, we're not going to accept that offer. We're going to see what's behind door number 3. And the panel said $290. Look at him. He saved $30,000 of value. And in his case, it was like $750. And I thought, wow, we're done. Bless you. Thanks for playing. And then as soon as we close the Zoom, he says, what else can we do? I said, oh my goodness, they're creating a monster. I said, I saved you $750. Go play in the street or something. So I said, oh, you could go to arbitration. So now here, this is a technique you have to understand. At arbitration, when you make that application, the only thing they're going to ask you when you make the application is what is your proposed value. And the reason is because now we've established a high and a low. The county has said $290. That's this group here. Your taxpayer is saying, I want $240. Now at this point we have to tell them. Otherwise we can't go to arbitration. And that makes for a midpoint. I took the 2, divided by 2, and I got the $265. Why is that important? Because if the arbitrator rules below the midpoint, then the county pays. The county has skin in the game. And I've had some cases where I just submitted the application and I submitted the check. I don't have a gamble. We put up our money and they didn't call our bluff. They said, you know what, would you take 280 or 270? But maybe Mr. Cifuentes is feeling lucky, like Clint Eastwood used to say. Well, in this case, Mr. Cifuentes gambled and he got it down to 260. So he won. The arbitration fee was paid by the county. The state only kept $50 of the $450 that it cost him to pony up. We're going to get you your money back soon. Promise you. You and I are going to work together. It just bothers me because she's one of the few exceptional cases. Most of the time, they settle because they don't want to take the risk of losing the fee that's paid to the arbitrator. Like if I'm the arbitrator, and he's for the county and you're the taxpayer, your deposit with the comptroller is going to be.
How much was the fee in a case like that? How much was the fee in a case like that?
I'm going to get to that, but if the value's less than $500,000, if your homes are less than $500,000, the fee that you put up, it's a deposit, it's $450. $50 goes to the state for the processing, the application. $400 goes to the arbitrator. If it's over $500,000, it's $500.
What if it's commercial property?
If it's commercial property, it could be as much as $1,500 depending on the value. So, congratulations, he stopped tax abuse. I mean, does that look like, the look of a gentleman that just does this all the time? He doesn't. And we had a good time. And so I said, Mr. Cifuentes, you mind if I share this? So Mr. Cifuentes travels all over the state with me now, so to speak. And that's them. Can you see me now, why I'm so excited about this? Because somebody like you is going to do what we're going to share with you, that he's going to share with you, and you can do this. Yes, sir.
Could you go back to the slide with the 240? Okay, so on that one,
So between 290 and 240, he said 240.
so he's just like, you know what, let's just do 240.
Yeah, if he had said 200, or let's say he said 190, then that lowers the midpoint, which, again, it's like a tug of war. If we pull them across we don't have to pull them over to our side, but if we pull them, we win if they get.
At what point would you say, well, that's a little low? Because honestly, if I can get it down to like 100 grand, right, there's no loss.
It's
Is there a point where you gotta think about it logically?
Absolutely, absolutely. But your risk tolerance and her risk tolerance and his risk tolerance and your case and her presentation and his tolerance for the process varies. So I don't have a formula. I can't say, oh, always go 10% low. True story. I had one case where it was the taxpayer got in a hurry. They filled out the arbitration form and they didn't have anybody look it over. They sent it in. They didn't even put a value. So the county calls me and the county lady is telling me, Mr. Malonga, you're going to lose because he didn't even put anything down. It's zero. And I'm like, well, I mean, you know that it's a mistake, and I didn't fill out the form, so don't, and she's just chewing my ear because she treats me like I'm her brother. And I'm giggling, and I'm texting the taxpayer. And I'm like, hey, what's the number that we want to put in? She's working with me. She has a little window of time before she submits it to the state. And she's got that 450, or in this case 500, in her pocket, that she knows she's now having to put up that, be prepared. Well, they had it at 800. As I'm talking to her, she says, I'm texting him, and he says, I want, what about, he says, well, you should know, this is the politics of it. I said, no, it's not politics, it's just numbers. What do you want? We had it at 850, they lowered it to 8.25. Do you want to put in 700? He says, oh, I'll take 750. Meanwhile, the lady says, will you take 700? I can't make this stuff up. I'm like, well, if you'll take 750, will you take 700? I'm laughing at both of them. True story. And because the more you save, the more I make when I'm involved. And again, this is for the benefit of the school. This is not a sales pitch. You're getting everything that we're talking about tonight, free. Okay? I know it's hard to believe, but that's just the way God made it. So in his case, I want to finish this, if I may. In his case, look at it. He was at 302, 307, 310. So for those of you that say, I haven't done this before, or maybe I've done it before, but now I've got a few other ideas. So he went in there, and if he had stayed with the 290, the most it could have gone up to was 319. Because what? The state, in all its generosity, is saying we've capped the increase in value by 10%. Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling the love, aren't you? And the county is saying, that's what we're going to assess you at. Mr. Cifuentes, we think your house is now worth $361. But because you have a homestead cap, the value can only go up by 10%, but they're gonna jack it up to here to discourage him because now he's gotta get past the 42,480 before he saves anything. That's what he would have been faced with, but instead, because he lowered it to 260, they couldn't go up more than 26,000. You can only go up on a homestead 10% per year. So not only did he save an extra 30,000 in value, he capped the potential increase, even though they wanted to say it's worth 361. Thank you.
I think you had a question over here.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
If you're with the appraisal board, and I think they had 390 on there, I think their release can go lower than the 390 again when you do. If they say that's the initial thing, and that's where we're stopping.
Try me again.
The slide you showed before, where they were at the appraisal.
This one?
Yeah.
So-
So it says 320, if you go in there and they say we're not going to go up to 320, then what do you do? Their offer is 320.
Then I want them to rule, and then that gives me 60 days from when they rule. You're going to get notified by certified mail of the ruling. When you receive that, make a note that you received it. And from that day, you have 60 days. You can call me on the 30th day. Please don't call me on the
So you just say
60th
I'm not
day.
going to accept it?
What's that?
You just say I'm not going to accept that offer?
You don't have to say anything. They're not even going to ask you.
They have.
So let's role play. He's the appraiser, right? The panel leader, she's the panel leader. She said, well, he offered you 300. Will you accept that? Say, no, I want the panel to rule. Okay, then this hearing is closed. So the hearing is now closed, and now we're going to discuss it among ourselves. And what do you say? Oh, I'm thinking 290. What do you think at 300? I'm thinking 290. Well, the 290s have it. Ma'am, you'll be getting a notice of our, they discussed it in front of you, but they're not discussing it with you anymore. The hearing is closed. He made an offer, you turned it down, they ruled it 290, you're gonna get it by certified mail, and then the clock starts. I have 60 days to see if I wanna play the game some more. Did I do a better job?
You have to pay again.
And
What's
that's
that?
what- And
You
that,
have to pay again.
No, you haven't paid to go in front of the panel.
Okay.
You only pay if you've been, when appeal the panel's ruling, that's made up of people in Harris County that think that, they got oil underneath their land. Or at least sometimes they're conditioned that way. I sometimes feel like they're culturally conditioned to get along with the appraiser that they see all day.
That's-
So they get used to doing this. And ma'am, I'm sorry, you may be special in your mom's eyes, but they look at you like, well, you just don't understand. They look at me the same way, so it's okay. You say, we just don't understand. He's a licensed appraiser. I said, I'm a licensed real estate broker. I stayed at a Holiday Inn last night. I mean, seriously, they'll go ask you. And he'll say he's a licensed real estate broker. They'll ask you and I, if I was there with you, please, for the record, tell us your name and your relationship to the property. You say, well, I'm the property owner. I said, well, I'm her neighbor. I'm a representative. I'm a brother in Christ. Are either of y'all, this is a formal question, are either of y'all licensed real estate appraisers in the state of Texas? No. I'm a licensed real estate broker. I'm a certified public accountant. I've taken the arbitration. I don't get to say all that. So I'm no better than you. They formally asked that silly question, and these people are left to say all day long, oh, he's the appraiser. He knows everything. He did 5,000 appraisals. I don't know diddly about what you told us. You can tell I'm a little passionate. I've been around this. It's funny. It's almost funny. As long as I can empower you and inspire you and entertain you long enough to say, let's go do it. Because with all due respect, I'm the son of Mexican immigrants. So I've heard it all. Right? The taxes aren't black and they're not brown. They're not yellow. They're not white. They're just they're just too high. Yes, ma'am.
I live on a street that there's 5 rental properties on that street,
Good point.
okay? Here's the thing, some of the renters don't take good care of the place, some of the owners don't make repairs on the place. And so it kind of puts our neighborhood down. I've taken all the pictures of these properties and stuff, and if the junk cars sitting in front of the properties and stuff, then it doesn't make a difference to them.
No, because, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And so, what do you do with things like that
When you say it doesn't make a difference, you're referring to either that appraiser, I'm picking on this gentleman, he looks kind of governmentalish, and this jury, they look kind of, you know, citizenry. And that's why I encourage you to understand the arbitration process, because making that appeal by arbitration in that 60 days after they rule, they're out of the game. We're never going to see them again. And there's usually a superior to this gentleman that then has to then decide whether they want to take that chance and lose that 450. And you're going to say, I'm in a transient neighborhood, Mr. Arbitrator from Beaumont. Let me show you. And so you're taking one more chance that somebody's going to get what you're talking about. And it's also a good opportunity for you to ask your neighboring landlords, I know they're not your neighbors, your neighboring landlords, are you protesting your value? Because you ought to be. Let me send you a picture.
Well, here's the other thing. Across the street from us, the people have built like a little apartment add-on to the side of the house for their mother-in-law. So when the guy sold the property, someone bought it as a rent place. So they rent both places. And that's really not legal in our neighborhood. But because the man had the house built for his mother, it stayed there. The bad thing is, what has happened is, we had druggies move in across the street, and they were passing drugs to the mailbox. There's been several shootings at that house because of the winters and stuff. So how do you feel the board about things like that?
You pull a rap sheet. Call the police department, say, can I get, you know, I call it a rap sheet. They've got a record of all the call-ins to the police. Get the, and that's part of my evidence, that's part of my location issue. Yes, sir.
So let me make sure I got this. So let me make sure I got this right, because I'm more through the process. Because I've been through it a few times as well. So when I get the notice, I should talk with the realtor to get the actual comps, because we shouldn't trust the evidence that they give us.
Absolutely.
Okay?
It's geared to support their
So
argument.
their argument, okay, got it. So get the actual comps. Then, once I go to the informal, that's pretty much a, hey, how you doing conversation, we both know I'm going to the board. Okay? Because in one case, I actually got them to bring the agent down, the actual person, the analyst. And they pretty much showed me my entire neighborhood and their, how can I say, database, actually saw it. So that was another experience. Then when we get to the board, it's him and him going back and forth. Here's my evidence, here's the police report, here's photos of my actual house, because you can't see it on Google, but that's the only thing that they use, they don't use actual pictures.
That's correct.
So, once I have all that, and we get to a ruling, then I can make a decision whether or not to go with mediation, kind of based on a cost benefit, because it really depends on
That's right.
how much your property is being assessed, right?
And you have, let me see if I can get to that. So this is the overview. You beat me to it. You file your protest, you attend the informal, you follow up to the informal, you may have learned something, then you re-prepare to attend the informal, and then you arbitrate or litigate. And you got 60 days from when the panel ruled at the formal, when they got that certified letter and said this is what you have 60 days.
So, because when the analyst came down, they just basically showed me that my entire neighborhood is between 5 and 6. The ranking factor, so to speak, so they just take it at 5.5. But 400 yards down my street, literally at the end of the street, the distance from here to that street, it's like nearly half.
And you may need to put together a proximity map to emphasize to hopefully a sympathetic board, if not an arbitrator, that don't talk about my neighbors that didn't protest, that are proud of their homes. Let me show you the homes that sold that are half a block down for that lower value.
Yeah, very sure. Okay.
So this is the chief appraiser of Bear County. And this is the taxpayer. You can see who's smiling, right? So Mr. Anaskita is the friendliest appraiser in the state, not because I, break bread with him, but he's the one that told me I should be an arbitrator because of these kinds of seminars. That's the look before the lawsuit that we proposed that we never even saw the court. That was before I learned arbitration. And we knocked down his manufacturing facility from 3.3 million to 3.15 in front of the panel over the appraiser's objection. And then we proposed a lawsuit. We got it down to 1.6. But gentlemen, Mr. Garcia, who has a master's in, I think it's economics, and the guy's done runs an incredible business, 3 generations. He goes in and he says, well, I want to make sure that this is measured right and this is measured right. And so, the gentleman that could cut the deal at 1.6 says, well, go meet with the appraiser. Appraiser makes all the adjustments, gets all the measurements right. He says, well, okay, I'll lower it to 2.3. I said, but he offered 1.6. He says, he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. True story. That's what he said. I said, well, I'm glad he doesn't. I'm taking his number. So that's why I show that picture, is because I've been down these. So back to your question, file within 60 days of receipt of the ARB ruling. Otherwise, if you're asking for advice, please don't wait till the 59th day. Call me in halfway. Sign the request, include a cashier's check to the comptroller. All these instructions are there. It's basically a 1.5-page form. And indicate your real to lower value request. That's when we're gaming the system, right? Real to lower. You may want, if that 450 isn't way heavy on you, you may want to go lower, betting on what? Human nature. If I go low enough, maybe they'll meet me halfway, which is really closer to what
I really want.
What I really want. But each person has a different risk tolerance. And use certified mail or proof, so that you have proof that you sent it. The fee structure you were asking earlier, I think it may have changed, but on residences, it was $450 is the deposit. The arbitrator got $400. For more than $500,000, it's $500. Again, the state keeps $50. Non-residents homesteads, $500,000. So on and so forth. This is all on the slides. Yes, ma'am.
If you hire someone like property tax or
Right.
something like that, how far down do they go?
How far down do they go in terms of their fees?
No. The layers, like, do they go all the way to arbitration? No.
It's negotiated. I got real active in arbitration because I saw where some of these companies who do high volumes, and most of you get 3, 4, 5 solicitations, they will make a case, allegedly, unless you're there with them, unless you were inspired now to give them a good case, and they may go treat it like they were settling a bunch of traffic tickets. I actually have a friend of mine who's got a master's in patent law, bless him, and he makes a really good income settling tickets. He got in the property tax business. He started selling some cases. He says, Mike, but I need help with commercial. I said, have you ever gone to formal? He says, I never go to formal. So be wary of who you hire. Ask them. Now, are you going to go to formal and preserve my right to arbitration? And you can charge me more if we go to arbitration?
But if they don't even come to your house and look at all the stuff
Right.
that's wrong with your house, how can they fight for you?
That's why we have smartphones, because they're smarter than us. We can take the picture. We can take a picture of the receipt. We can send them. Seriously, good question. But that's where the world is caught up to, at least somebody my age. If you get Cam Scanner, it's an app. It's free. You can take a picture with your phone. I showed you Mr. Cifuentes. He's not the one I showed you that had the master's in economics. You can even get estimates online from people that don't even go.
Let me ask one more question. When you do comps, can you look up on HCAD, like look at your neighbor's house or who owns
Yes.
the other street?
Yes. Yes. If you go to-
He said something like a realtor, but if you don't want to.
Well, no, you definitely don't mind engaging the realtor for, you want to engage the realtor for market values, not engage them, but they might be able to give you a CMA, comparative market analysis. But you bring up an excellent point. If you go to HCAD and you get all the details on your property, you can also go to View Map, and it'll show you where your property is, and then you can just click on the next one and say, what's my neighbor's at? And what the other 2 doors down? The ones that look like yours, or maybe the ones that are differentiated because they're bigger lots, better locations. Yes, sir.
Ladies and